Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
You may have noticed today that I am wearing a plain black t-shirt. It is so very Elizabeth Holmes, Steve Jobs, etc. And this is a tactic that has been employed by a lot of very, very busy people in order to reduce decision fatigue by not figuring out at all what you have to wear each day and wearing the same thing every day. I think even Simran Kaur, the Girls That Invest, has decided to do the same. So we thought we'd talk today about decision fatigue, why it hits us, why it causes us to make bad decisions sometimes. Do you suffer from this, Kristen?
Yeah, I suffer from high cognitive or mental load, absolutely. But I don't think I want to wear the same thing every day. So I will reserve my brain for some things that I care more about, and probably wearing colorful and different outfits every day is a thing. But I have noticed that when I have to get ready for something or do my face or whatever for the day, it is an extra thing that I have to think about.
I actually don't wear black t-shirts every day, but I don't think too much about what to wear. My version of that is having more of a capsule wardrobe. I've probably got like 5 or 6 things I cycle through. People have started to notice the bright earrings. It's because it's so easy to pick one pair of earrings that goes with one pretty plain outfit. Boom, done. Don't think about it anymore.
I do not have a capsule wardrobe, and I sometimes wonder, am I just not that person, or is it because I buy pieces that are so separate and I can only wear it with black pants or whatever? Anyway, don't have a capsule.
I think it's because
wardrobe.
you like fashion. I just don't really like fashion. I hate thinking about clothes. Like, I'm that girl when everyone's like, let's get ready together. What do you think about this? Let's try stuff on. That I'm like, oh, kill me now.
When I think about the big decisions in my life, I am a fan of maybe not making the right decision, because that's really hard without all the information, but making the decision right. Everything from my husband to my friends to jobs. And I'm a big fan of making decisions right. But one thing that I know where I struggle is self-sabotage. And that could be everything from protecting my time, my sleep, my health, my well-being, all these little micro decisions that we make throughout the day. Sometimes I get wrong.
Yeah, it's actually something I've been thinking about a bit recently, because especially when it comes to time, we are ruthless with time blocking. We spend a lot of time, well, we've just come out of our weekly planning session where we go through our calendars, we remove stuff, we add stuff, we challenge everything. And that is what enables us to get through the week in one piece. And what sometimes I've noticed in my brain that happens is if someone cancels, and often these are for very reasonable reasons, like no big issue, but then the onus becomes on me to reorganize my calendar around them, and I just don't have capacity to do that anymore. So I've started to really pay attention to that feeling of like, oh, I feel guilty, I feel like I should do it, and going, it's not your job. They've had to cancel, they can figure it out. And obviously, depending on the context, but I think some of those things we add to our own mental load because we assume, because someone's asked us, that suddenly it's our responsibility to take it on. And often it's not. You can go back and say, sorry, I don't have that time.
Well, and one thing I think we've really normalized is sending out our Calendly links. We just say, let's chat for 15 minutes to make things easy. Here is our link. Go ahead and book a time that suits you. And so we've normalized being able to do that. And I think with decision fatigue, one thing that tips me over the edge is when I'm trying to get time with someone who has an executive assistant and having to go back and forth with a human on deciding on a time to meet. I'm like, where's the link? But decision fatigue, it's all about your brain gets worse at choosing things the more choices you make. It's a thing. So there's this study with judges that's really interesting. And what they found was that prisoners were 7 times more likely to get parole in the morning than the afternoon. Same cases, but different times. So by the afternoon, they'd had it with these people and were not going to give them parole. In fact, those that came in the morning were able to get parole because they were fresh and they were able to make great decisions. And as the day went on, they were fatigued.
And probably a bit grumpy. So everyone went to jail because a judge got grumpy. I feel like it's probably the same if we think through our own lives as non-judges. There are a whole bunch of examples, like even thinking about what to eat in the evening. And I remember in one of our very early pilots, I think it was in one of our pilots, and we mentioned something about what to have for dinner. We literally were just as part of the mental load women take on, we're figuring out what to have for dinner. And you just saw these women pause and suddenly start to go, oh, I've got to figure out what to have for dinner. And it totally threw them out of the conversation and into dinner planning. And yet another example of that. As the day goes on, as your number of decision mounts, suddenly you're like, oh, everything feels so hard and I've now got to drop things, important things, in order to plan dinner.
And in fact, women get a pretty raw deal. Research shows that we make about 65% more household decisions before even starting work. And then the average woman makes around 35,000 decisions a day. Now for men, it's under 30,000. So that's a big difference. Working moms switch between 10 different mental arenas. So things like meals, cleaning, schedules, healthcare, finances, maintenance, social coordination, and then now they've got childcare, relationship maintenance, and children's education. I spent an hour with my son last night on homework.
No, I definitely think, obviously parenting adds a massive load. I think there was a really interesting conversation though last week with a woman, and we were talking about the art of saying no. She'd been asked to do is go to one of her friends, I think it was a friend's child's birthday, and sort the food. And she was like, just because I'm a single woman who chose not to have kids doesn't mean it's my job to take on the extra load of the events like this. And I think that, so I suspect that's obviously not nearly as much mental and physical load as being a parent. But I have noticed in my life being single, there is an expectation, when I was single and actually child-free, there is an expectation that you're the one to work late and pick up more of the organizing load, more of the social load, all of that sort of stuff, because everyone else has so much on. But again, that's the boundaries thing of going, that's all fine and good, but just because I opted out of having children doesn't mean it's my responsibility to pick up everyone else's load.
I've never heard that, but I imagine that happens with aunties and stuff.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not actually just aunties. It's and I think men suffer from this just as much, single men or child-free men. It's just this expectation of everyone else's stuff on. So your time is less valuable because your stuff on might be going home and cooking a nice dinner, and everyone else is like, well, we've got children to wrangle, and you're like, not my problem. I feel like that household decision stuff, and I find, I don't know about you, one of the things that grates me, one of the sentences that grates me the most these days is someone saying, I don't mind, because what you're actually saying is, I'm putting the load on you to make this decision. That's exactly what you are saying. So if it's a group of people going out for dinner and someone's like, I don't mind, you're like, firstly, you probably do mind. And secondly, you're literally just opting out and leaving the weight on other people. And you notice that with the some of the things we spoke about last week. We did a lot of great events last week, even around figuring out gifts for family members and often extended family. Making those decisions is decision making. Like, you have to decide the gift, you have to decide when you're going to do it. You have like all these micro decisions in order to do that. And they add up and they take up so much brain space and they do exhaust us.
And that's not even kind of going into when we make decisions at work and all of the knife edge scenarios we have to juggle in our heads, like the extra mental load of, how do I balance speaking up and saying my opinion without being labeled difficult or being nice or not nice enough? But then also the fact that our decisions are challenged more often than men. But that said, that is a totally different podcast. But yeah, that I don't mind one is so interesting. That's a very Kiwi saying. And I shut my kids down every time they say that. Do you want a grilled cheese sandwich or do you want a ham sandwich? Maybe they're totally fatigued. Again, their batteries are out. They're like, I can't even think of a restaurant I like. Or maybe is it we're trying to please people? Who knows?
I think that's absolutely fair. And I think one of the things there, though, is I'm a huge fan of language and saying, right now, I don't have capacity to make this decision. And a lot of my friends do say that. Wonderful. Be honest. I don't mind. It's everyone's like, yes, you do. You just don't want to do it.
And especially because I care about food. Let me tell you, I mind.
You always mind.
Let me tell you 3 places that I want to go and where I will not go. No.
And there are times that I've found with you, with Kyla, with a few other foodies, where I say, I'm happy to make the call, but I think you care more than me.
We're like, no, you're not.
The reason, other than tiring us out, the reason we did want to talk about this today is that when you filled up your brain so much and we're making so many decisions, this decision fatigue means that we are often making less good decisions when they're important decisions. So this is that thing, and we've talked about this a bit with saying no. We come out of those workshops and they're incredible and people identify things to say no to. And then you sometimes hear the odd thing of, oh yeah, I turned down this board position or I turned down the promotion and I'm so proud of myself. And we're like, no. You should be saying yes to that stuff. And I think that's such a great example of decision fatigue leads us to sometimes not identify those strategic yeses, and we say no to the wrong things, or we respond poorly to great opportunities because it just feels exhausting. So we want to cut down on that decision fatigue so that we free up that mental space for stuff that really does matter.
The inability to decipher the strategic yeses from what is just a time suck and not going to move us forward is so important. And you're right, if our brains can't handle navigating the complexity of just that single decision, then we simply have too much on. But the other thing is, we did a mini masterclass last week on fake risk versus real risk. And we're probably spending far too much mental energy on the stuff that makes us nervous and takes up space, like speaking up, that should just be made very quickly, versus actually the stuff that deserves more of our time and consideration, which is why sometimes we do the wrong things, because we've taken up so much time with the unimportant stuff.
It's even like that whole, the office plate, taking a plate of muffins in for a shared lunch. Like, you've just run through 10 decisions. Just go grab something from the supermarket, cut some decisions.
On that, we've got a few ideas. My first idea is just cut down on the choices. And I like this, starting to create rules or processes or systems, as Stu Van Rij would say. Like, what is the system for your life that you have set into motion that keeps you at your best and that cuts down on the choices? So things like meeting-free Mondays, for example, that's not our thing, but that might be your thing. If you find that Monday is your focus time and you need to do your deep work time, or no email after dinner could also create that fatigue. If your brain is probably not at its best, think about the iPhone battery or your phone battery. Protect yourself from yourself by creating rules that you abide by. Other little things like no agenda is an automatic no for a meeting. Do I have to be here if I don't know what this meeting is about? That is my rule. And being sure that you communicate that as well, I think, is important to protect your brain.
I like it. I do the opposite. Well, I do the same, but in an opposite way for exercise. To go 3 times a week, you're going out for a walk or run, put it in your calendar, done with it, rather than spend the whole week going, should I go out today? Oh, do I have time? And all of those little micro decisions in your head, just like make the rule, put it in your calendar, and it stops you from not doing it or thinking about it all week and deciding whether or not you're going to do it, which is what I do. I like the 10-10-10 question, and we hear this all the time, and it's a perspective question, which is, how will I feel about this in 10 minutes? How will I feel about it in 10 days? And how will I feel about it in 10 years? And being able to, you could also go months as well, realizing that those time frames. So like, for example, you are at your wit's end, you are overloaded, and it is your mother-in-law's birthday, and you have somehow wound up putting your hand up or being in charge of buying her a gift. You could say, depending on your mother-in-law, you could say in 10 days' time, if I give her a voucher and it's not her favorite thing, she won't care. She may care 10 years on. You might make your decision based on that. And I think that's such a nice, easy way of looking at it, going, if she's really chill, probably just say, look, I was a bit overloaded. I've got you a voucher. Done. We've got you a voucher, because I'm sure you have to share the credit, even if you took on all the work. And I just love to think about that with all those really different decisions that you go, how much does it actually matter? And that time frame thing is just a really concrete way of figuring that out.
That's probably a good one for those small micro decisions, and things like what to wear, or things like where to eat for dinner, for example, knowing that in 10 months it doesn't matter. And so therefore, just to make the call and make the decision right, as opposed to make the right decision. Take what limited info you have and just go with it.
Yeah.
Like you going to Queenstown with no warm clothes.
And do you know what? Other than having my face right now, I look like we've been watching Game of Thrones, as you know. And there's a lot of undead. Are they called White Walkers? I look like one right now. My face is absolutely peeling off. Because the other decision that I made very poorly was, just because there's a southerly wind blowing on a full sun day does not mean you don't get burnt in summer in New Zealand. Just a little lesson for all of us.
The sun is very strong. And then one that we think is really important is protect your best hours for you. When are you at your best? Protect that time in your calendar. Protect your rituals, like the things that make you feel good for you. That is your exercise. So that is your best hour. It could be when you enjoy to get outside, take a break from work. It could be your deep work time. It could be time with your children. Protect that time. Just get it in your calendar. Calendar is God. And stick to it.
I've been reflecting on just the first part of this conversation and sort of those hard line boundaries around just because someone's got a PA doesn't mean I need to work around them. You can do that all in a very professional, polite way. I feel like sometimes we can talk about this stuff and it sounds like we're like, no, I won't deal with you. And that's not the case either. Like, I think all of these can be very seamless, very polite, very gracious, but it's almost the stories we tell ourselves rather than the outward story of just I have to like literally ruthlessly remind myself, this is not my problem. And then outwardly, I'm smiling and being very pleasant, but inwardly, I'm like having a word with myself about it.
In addition to that fabulous tip, the one thing that just came up for me was ask yourself, does this decision need to be made right now? And I wonder if sometimes we hold on to things. I don't know. Do we like complexity or drama, or sometimes we're our own worst enemies or get in our own way? Is it that we've got this big thing coming up and we're just allowing it to take up space? And if we were to ask ourselves, does this decision need to be made today? And then just get it out of our heads, put it in the calendar, like for when we do our power planning, put the thing that doesn't need any of our brain space up top to be dealt with next week. I think that's a really great practice as well.
I think the reverse is also true. If you've got a decision that's weighing on your mind and you're thinking about it all day, every day, just say, I'm going to make the decision now, and then I'm going to walk away from it. And often, and I think we're going to do a little bit more on this, but we can weigh up these decisions for so long. But if it's not going to give you any more information, it's not going to give you any more certainty, make the decision and then make that decision right. I love how you say that, because I feel like that if I can find myself sometimes, is it called ruminating, going round and round on a decision and then just making it frees up brain space. So I think either way works. Like, can you delay the decision? And if you can't, just make it, get it done.
Which leads us perfectly to the action this week, picking a decision that is in your pending tray, one that might be draining you, one that just either needs to be kicked down the road and forgotten about and or made today. Pick one decision that's draining you right now. Either delete it completely. Do you have to make it right now? Or make a decision in the next 24 to 48 hours, or delegate it, hand it over to someone else to make the decision. And if you've got colleagues, partners, you don't have to do it all on your own. Is there someone you can pass it off to?
I do like that idea, because I feel like we have so many silly little decisions in a day that's probably a really good place to start. If when you said that, I'm like going straight to what big decisions do I have to make? And it actually doesn't have to be big decisions. It could be, oh, what time are we doing this thing? Or who's coming for this thing? Just figure out that thing that's taking up a little bit of brain space, because freeing up that little bit is helpful. It will give you some time and energy back.
I've got a quote, and this is just one kind of from us, really. It's not, I mean, we haven't like coined it.
Is this a Kristen quote? A literal Kristen quote? I am shook.
Yeah. So the quality of your life isn't about what you pile onto your plate. It's about what you keep off of it.
I love it.
Do you remember the China plates?
Yeah,
in the air
I do.
juggling?
I live my life by it. And I think, I suppose it does apply to decisions as well. If we are juggling so many things, and let's say we're juggling decisions, you've got 35,000 plates you're juggling at any one stage. We are expert jugglers. About probably, I'm going to say 34,990 insignificant decisions. They are small things that will probably not be in your mind even 10 seconds later, let alone 10 days or 10 months or 10 years. That's what we'd call your Kmart China when you're thinking about the plates you're juggling. That is the kind of plates that if you drop them, it's actually not really going to have much impact. You just get to have another fabulous trip to Kmart and come away with way too much stuff. The other ones, though, could be your absolute best heritage heirloom china, the stuff that your great-great-great-grandmother or grandfather presented to someone at some stage. You don't want to drop that stuff. So if you're thinking about those really important decisions, those are your really fancy china that you don't want to drop. So if you keep juggling without mindfully putting down or dropping some of that Kmart china, you're running the risk you're going to drop some of the fancy stuff. So really intentionally drop some decisions that are not that important, and that will make sure that you have protected the ones that are really important.
Fabulous. Well, that was fun. Hopefully other people enjoyed it too. Go forth and make some of the 35,000 go away. Give us 5 stars. We'll thank you for it.
Yeah, make the decision right now and follow through with that 5-star. Don't let it weigh on your mind. Do not give in to decision fatigue over this. If you've been tossing up for the last couple of weeks, should I rate them? Should I not? Make that decision now. Get it done now.
Also to become a member. Just do it.
Just do it.
Thank you, everyone. Check out powersuit.com and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.